Welcome to this video where we will cover some of the key collaboration functionality in the Microsoft Office 365 suite. So we'll start off with what is Office 365. So really what we're looking at in this video is how we can enable teamwork and simplify workflow within the Office 365 solution stack. Most of us are familiar with the common Office applications, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and so on. And what we're really looking at here is how we can join those dots together, use Microsoft Teams to enable some real collaboration, to kind of bring together people's knowledge and working practices across an organization, enable organizations to work remotely, work from home, stay productive on the go, enhance collaboration and communication, but without compromising any of the security that is essential in our modern businesses. So what can Columbus do in this area? Well, Columbus calls this space modern workplace, and really we focus on four key areas. We're going to touch mainly today on the communication and collaboration, and the storing and sharing of files elements of this, but it's also important to keep front of mind that in any project where we're talking about moving certain elements of our business into the cloud, there'll be some considerations that are very important around what existing on-premises IT infrastructure do we have that we need to either migrate to the cloud or consider when we migrate into the cloud, and what have we got around security? Do we need to do some assessment and some benchmarking of where we're at from a security perspective, so that we make sure that that transition to the cloud is as secure as possible, with the aim to make it more secure once it's in the cloud than it is currently in the on-premise scenario. So we're going to walk through four demonstrations that are based on scenarios in a fictional retail business where we've got a requirement to collaborate within a retail store environment. We're going to look at collaboration in the well-known, well-loved desktop applications for Office 365. We're going to look at Microsoft Teams, what Microsoft Teams is. We're going to look at how we might use Office 365 in a retail store, and we're going to look at how we might use Office 365 collaboration tools to support the launch of a new product range. In the first demonstration, we're going to look at collaboration functionality within the desktop applications. This functionality applies to all of the Microsoft Office 365 applications, so Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and the others. And really, it's intended to start moving us away from saving files and collaborating on files in local file shares and shared folders, and move towards storing documents and collaborating with documents interactively online using Office 365's OneDrive and SharePoint Online functionality. Okay, so I've now moved over and I've opened Word on my local computer. This is the Office 365 version of Word, so it'll be very familiar to everyone who's used Word before. This is just the cloud-enabled version that comes with Office 365. And there's a few things to point out here that make it special in terms of what we're going to do from a collaboration perspective. The first thing is you'll note in the top right-hand corner here, this copy of Word is logged in with my corporate credentials. So this is my normal Windows username and password that I use to access my computer, and this that account has been given a Office 365 license, so it's got access to both use the Word and Excel and PowerPoint and associated apps on my computer, but also the online components of those, which is what enables the collaboration. So that's quite important, and we'll keep returning to this as we go through the demo. In the main body of the Word here, you see I've just opened up an included Microsoft Word letter template just so that we've got some content. And I've saved that document, so I've given it the title Word Collaboration Example. Importantly, when we start looking at collaboration, remember we're trying to move away from on-premise file shares and storing files locally and emailing them around. So I've saved this document into a folder that is actually a OneDrive folder. So this is an Office 365 cloud location in my corporate OneDrive. So this is managed by IT. It's corporate, so it's not like having your own Dropbox or something that's a personal thing. This is a corporate managed OneDrive folder that's in the cloud that will enable the collaboration. You'll also notice in the top left we've got an extra dialog that, compared to the normal version of Word, for autosave. And the autosave functionality, when a file is stored in either OneDrive or SharePoint Online, will make sure that what you're working on in the window at any one time is saved automatically to the cloud, so that whoever's collaborating with you on documents will see the latest version and they can collaborate on it with you real time. So if we have a look at how the collaboration piece works, so you'll notice in the top right here, we've got a couple of collaboration buttons. We've got share and comments. If I was to click the share button here, this will enable me to bring somebody else to work on this solution with me. So if I click share, I get this share dialog box, and this allows me to choose a permission level that I want to share the file with. So I could choose to allow people just to read the document, but in this case, I'm going to allow anybody within my organization to edit this file. But I specifically want to collaborate with Jane Smith. Now, Jane could be a colleague in the organisation, and we're going to collaborate on this document together. So you type as many people in here, email addresses as you want, and you can add a message if you want to communicate something about the thing you're collaborating on. There are a couple of other options down at the bottom here, so we can copy a link and then you could paste it into an instant message window, or paste it into an open email that you've already started writing, or whatever. There's multiple ways to actually share that thing. But once we've chosen who we want to collaborate with here, we click the send button, and then we get a confirmation to say that file request to collaborate has been sent to Jane. It hasn't sent the file, it's just sent a link to it in that cloud location, which we'll see in the next part of the demo. Okay, so I've now switched over to Jane's computer. So you see here I'm logged on at the top as Jane. And now I'm in my web browser and I'm looking at Jane's mailbox. So I've opened the Office 365 Outlook application, and I'm viewing Jane's mailbox. And you can see here, the top email here is from me, and it's that share collaboration request that we just saw from my computer. So if I go into that mail in Jane's mailbox, you'll see that this is the share request. You see that I've shared this document. There's an icon that represents the document, and we've got the option to open that document and start collaborating on it. So I'll switch back to my computer now to see the view that I've got when I've shared this document with Jane. So I'm still in the same document in Word, and meanwhile Jane has opened it on her computer. So you see in the top right now, I get a notification to say that Jane is in this document at the same time as I am. So I still got full edit control, but because we shared it with Jane, she also has edit control over this document. And you see we get a little icon here to indicate Jane. If we shared this with multiple people and they're all editing at the same time, you get a little row of icons, and you can see this information for each of the users that are working on that document collaboratively at the same time. You also see, a bit hard to see in this example, but you'll also see that Jane is actually in the document at this particular location in the document. So she's got the logo section of this document selected on her screen. And the color purple there matches with her icon, so you can see this is Jane. So you can see at any time anybody else who's collaborating on the document interactively, but you can also see in which part of the document they're collaborating. If we look at this from Jane's point of view, you can see, and Jane's scrolled down the document a little bit, and she's got the logo selected, which is where we got the purple icon from in the previous view from my computer. You'll also see from Jane's side that she can now see that I'm also collaborating on this document. So that's my little thumbnail picture from me inside the corporate organization. And you can then see that the collaboration toolbar at the top here in the comments section, Jane has written a comment attached to this particular location in the document to ask me to do something. So she's mentioned me by name, and you'll see that across all of the Office stack, across all of these tools, the at mentioned functionality, this will push this message into my version of Word with this message, but it'll also assign the task to me so that I'll get a notification to say, you need to do something, Jane has asked you to do something. So if Jane sends that message and then we switch back to my computer, you'll see now that Jane is still collaborating on this document. You can see the location she is, and you can also see that attached to this location is a message for me to add the logo into this document that we're collaborating on together. In this second demonstration, we'll have a look at the Microsoft Teams client, which for most people is the home for all of the Office 365 components within their Workday. So here we are with the Teams client open on my computer. So you'll see again at the top right hand corner, we can see that this is logged in with my corporate profile. That's just the username and password that I use to log onto my computer. You see I'm logged into the Teams client here with that. Also see down in the bottom here, I've got OneDrive also logged in with that same set of credentials on this computer as well. We'll have a look at some of the features in the Teams client, some of the generic ones, and then we'll dive into some of the more specific functionality. So the app itself is really a workspace and is the home page, the landing page for all of the collaboration tools used within Office 365. So you see down the left-hand side, the first icon of note really is the chat icon. See, I've only got one contact in this organization, Jane, who we met in the previous demo, but this is a one-to-one chat platform for you to collaborate, have conversations with other people in the organization, and share information with them directly. So this is all one-to-one or one-to-small group. You can add multiple people into these conversations, and you can just have text chat. You've got emoticons to react to bits in conversation. We've got an opportunity to share files. You see here, we've attached, as part of the chat, we've attached a Word document which will persist within this chat. So again, in the back end, it gets stored in the cloud storage in SharePoint or OneDrive, and that file is there forever so that you can collaborate on it. But it originated here by being uploaded through this chat window. So we can have those chat conversations. We can also turn this into a video conference call, either using just audio via your computer or using a video camera if you've got a camera attached to your computer. Within that conversation, you can share your desktop, so you can share the application you're working on if you want to be able to see what the other person's doing, or you want to share with another person what you're doing. You can add other people into this conversation. So if I want to talk to a small group, 2 or 3 people at a time, I can pick from a list of people in the organization, and I can add those into this same chat window and collaborate with them from there. See the icon here called Calendar. This is a view of your personal calendar. Now, this is predominantly made up of the calendar that you're probably familiar with already from Outlook. This is the Exchange Online calendar. There's obviously no entries in mine here, but I can add new meetings in here. And they will be Teams meetings, so that they could be video conferencing calls or audio calls. We can add attendees in here and do all the same sort of scheduling things that we can do using an Outlook meeting. But this gives us a single view of that calendar, so the information pulling from our Outlook, from our Exchange calendar, but also any of the other bits and pieces. So if we get tasks assigned to us using one of the other planning tools within Office 365, they will also show in this calendar. So that we've got them all in a single place. We've got the calls functionality here. And this allows us to set up calls directly using the audio devices on our computer with other people in the organization. If you buy the telephony add-on SKUs for Office 365, you can also make calls out to actual phone numbers, mobiles and landlines. And there's calling plans that you can purchase from Microsoft for those functionality. But without those add-ons, you can have video and audio calls with other people within the organization, either one-to-one or one to a small group. And then also here we've got the files option. So the files option is a summary, brings together all of our collaborative documents. And this is a list of recent documents that we've collaborated on. But you see over on here, we can see what's in our OneDrive. So we've talked about this in the previous demo, but we've got a collaborative view of what's in here, and we can add other cloud storage that we use frequently. So if you use Dropbox, or if you use SharePoint Online, or whatever it happens to be, you can add those in there. So again, you've got a single launch point for all of your online collaborative file storage tools. We're now going to look at some use cases around using Office 365 components in a retail store scenario. Okay, so we're back in the Microsoft Teams client, and we've gone to the Teams tab over on the left-hand side here. So The Teams functionality here is where the application gets its name, and really Teams refers to a collection of Microsoft Teams which are logical organizational units that allow you to split your business into useful teams that can be used to separate out job functions. So these might be along the lines of actual hierarchical teams within an organization. They might be project teams. They might be short-term things. So it might be for a specific piece of work. You might form a team for a project and then decommission it at the end of that period. Or it might be a team that exists because it's part of an organizational structure, like the finance department, for example, that exists forever and the people move in and out of the teams. So effectively, teams are ways of organizing collaborative content and sharing that with groups of people. So you can just imagine them as sort of collections of people working on a common purpose. So you see in our example here, I've got 3 teams available to me, and we're working around a scenario of a retail type business. So the team we're going to start off by looking at is this one at the top called Nottingham Store. And have a look at the structure of a team. So if I go into the team, you see underneath I've got 3 entries here. These are called channels in Teams, and channels are even more granular ways of dividing up a team. So the team has a collection of people, i.e. people that work in the Nottingham Store, and then within each of these, by default, I can create channels that are accessible by the whole team, so everybody in the Nottingham Store, but I can also secure them to a more granular level and give them specific permissions. So you'll see here that I've got a general, which is the default one that gets created as part of the team. I've got one for all staff, which is everybody inside the Nottingham Store. And then I've got this one here, which is very specific and is for store management, and it's set up as a private team, which only gives access to those people who have been specifically added to the role of store manager. And you'll see over here, we've got the option to manage the channel and add team members so that we can manage the permissions. I'm an owner of this team, and therefore I'm able to see that and add and remove people. So there's a few options. You can either say you want the whole team to be able, the whole organization, i.e. your whole business, to have access to a team. You can say, I want to invite specific people into my team, or you can say, I want to be able to control that right down at the channel level and add specific people into that channel. So if we have a look at one of those channels now, so if we have a look at our all staff channel, and in this use case, we're really talking about a channel that contains collaborative items and information relative to all the staff that work in a particular store. So the landing page for this channel has a number of elements to it. It has the main pane in here, and then it has a set of tabs across the top. If we look in the main pane for a second, by default, when you go into the channel for the first time, you've got this conversation view. There's not much in there at the moment, but we can start a conversation in here and we can start interacting with our colleagues. So we could say, hi team, and then we can mention people using the @ again. So we can say, hi Jane. Jane, do you have the monthly sales stats report? And we can build up a conversation in here. So everybody in our channel, in this case, everybody in the team has got access to this channel and they will receive that notification. Jane will get a notification in their own activity area up here because we've specifically mentioned Jane. And then all of us as users in the team can interact with that message. Jane could reply with an attachment of the file and so on. So you've got a kind of collaborative chatting area here. You could also call a meeting with the whole team, and you can do a meet now. So you just invite everybody in the team to meet right now, which is not so useful in large teams, but might be useful in a small project team, where you can schedule a meeting and put it in people's calendars. If we look across the tabs across the top, we've added some custom ones in here to show you some of the functionality in Office 365. One of those pieces of functionality is called lists. So if we have a look here at the incident reports tab, this is a custom list that we've built, and it actually exists in SharePoint Online, but this has been built from within the Teams client. and this is using a standard template for an incident report or an issue report type scenario. So you see here we're talking about recording incidents in a store. So you've got the option to add new entries into here, and you can record the details of some kind of incident or event that's happened, and then it will store that data for you in SharePoint, and that data is accessible to all the users in the team in the back end. They can go and have a look at these pieces of data and these reports. And similarly, we've got Microsoft Forms functionality, which is basically a way of sending out questionnaires to groups of users. And in this case, we can set them across the whole team. So here we've got a questionnaire that's capturing data from some cleaning checks inside in a store, and basically saying, a quick bit of feedback. When did you carry out the check? What was the star rating of the cleaning check? And you'll see in here that if we go into the mode where we can answer that, and anybody in the team can answer that, we can go in here and say, right, so on Monday, I did my checks and it was 5 stars. And then you could maybe say, today I went and did my checks and it was 2 stars, for example. So it's a very quick way to get feedback on data. And this is accessible across multiple devices. So you can imagine somebody in a store might be looking at this on a mobile device, and these are fully responsive forms. So you can see that that entry point simulated on a form, and you can design and build these. And anybody with the right level of permission in a team can go and design and build these these forms to collect data. The data behind these elements is all stored in SharePoint Online, and you see if you go over here to the Files tab inside the channel, we can see this cleaningchecks.xls here, and this is the data store behind that cleaning checks application that we built over there. And if we go and have a look in that Excel document there, we should see that the data captured in here is that information that we just typed in. So you see the rating and the date the check was carried out, and then you've got some information about who it was that was interacting with the form and submitted that data. And if we have a look at the final channel in this team, so the store manager channel, remember this padlock signifies that this is a special type of channel, a private channel, which has its permissions managed by an owner within the channel and is restricted further than the rest of the team. For users that are part of the Nottingham store team that aren't specifically listed as a store manager, they just won't see this entry on their viewing team. So anybody in Nottingham store without being a manager will see the general and the all staff channels, but they won't see the store manager channel. If we have a look at the settings on the channel, so if we go manage channel, you can see here that at the moment I'm the owner of this channel. I've invited a single member into here, but I could go and add other members in here as well. So we could add Jane, for example, and say Jane is a store manager in Nottingham, and she has the level of access as member, but we could promote her to an owner, and that would allow Jane to also manage the permissions on this team if we wanted that facility as well. So we can add her into there. If we have a look at the content in the channel, we saw previously the files functionality where it was storing the files that had been interacted with elsewhere in the channel. You see here that we've actually defined some kind of folder structure in here, and this is probably similar to some folder structures that you might see on premises. And this is where we start to see that we can take what we know about on-premise file shares and replicate that in the cloud, but give us much greater flexibility in terms of how we can collaborate on the documents. So in this case, the Nottingham Store Manager channel, with that limited set of users, has some folders that are only accessible to people in that channel, and serve as a storage location for those. But once the documents are in here, by default, those users that are in the channel can collaborate on those documents, as we saw in the original demonstration, where they can just open those documents directly and collaborate directly in those documents. Notice also that we've got a new tab at the top of this one that we haven't seen before. This one's called Financial Performance, and this is where we've just added some functionality from elsewhere in the Microsoft stack. So this is actually pulling in a Power Platform component This is a Microsoft Power BI report, which is running in the cloud, pulling data from an ERP system, for example, and that data can be surfaced inside the Store Managers tab. So head office could push this data down to the store managers. It's restricted just to them, but they can see inside their team the performance relating to the whole business, or depending on how the filters are set up by the sort of head office IT department, this could be restricted data just for that single store if that was what was relevant to them. In this demo, we're going to look at how we might use Office 365 collaboration functionality to launch a new product range. Okay, so we're back in Microsoft Teams, and we're going to go this time into the All Company Stores team. And we see under there we've got this new channel called New Range Launch. We're going to build up some content in this team so that we can start using it for a project to launch a new range for Christmas. We're going to start this by moving to the conversation area, and we're going to start a new conversation, and we're going to make everybody aware that there's a style guide available for this new range. So we're going to use the @mention again, but this time we're going to mention the team, so the message goes to everybody in the team. So if we do start typing the name of the team, we get an @mention for the whole of the team. So we can send a message to the whole team and say, here is the launch guide, and then we can use the file attach option to upload a file from computer, pick up the layout guide for the store, let that upload into the Teams client, and then we can submit that into the conversation area. Now, all the other users that are in this team will have received a notification in their activity area, and they can come here and they can reply to the message. Obviously, you wouldn't normally reply to yourself, but they can reply to the message. They can interact with it as they see fit, acknowledge it. But more importantly, this is a collaborative document now. So not only can we talk about the document in the chat here, we can actually launch it directly from this conversation. So if we just click on it inside the Teams client, Teams will load the file. So this is a Word document. It'll load it inside the Teams client and give you a cut down version of the Word edit toolbar inside the Teams client. So there's no need to fire it up in a separate copy of Word. You see you've got Word down here, but there's nothing opening there. And we can edit, we can make simple edits. And this is exactly the same as the first scenario we looked at, where we can have collaborative editing on here. Multiple people accessing at the same time. They'd show up in the top here if they were editing it. We've got that comment functionality, and we can use the conversation functionality in Teams to have a chat about the file as we edit it and as we change it. It is exactly the same as editing in Word. We also have the option here if we wanted to, if we want the full style bar from Office, and you'll see that most of it is there. It's just a little bit more compact because it's embedded inside an app. But we do have the option here to open in Word, and if you click the open in Word option, then the file will look exactly the same as the original scenario where we were talking about collaborating on a file in Microsoft Word. So we get the full layout version of the document, and again, you see I'm logged in here. I've got the option to share and make edits and comments, and I'd be able to see the other people that were collaborating on that document. So once we're happy with that and we've done our edits, that can live in there. But you might be wondering where this file actually is, because this could get a bit confusing if you have to remember that all your files are in some conversation in a team somewhere. Well, the file is actually, although it's referenced here in the conversation, the file is actually in a SharePoint location, and that SharePoint location is behind this tab, this Files tab at the top here. So if we go into this Files tab here, you can see that we've got this document, and you can see that I've only just uploaded this document to here. That little icon in the top left there tells us that this is a new file, and this is a this is a file in SharePoint, so this is accessible outside Teams. So you see if we, oops, I didn't mean to launch that. If we go here, we can say open in SharePoint, and if we open in SharePoint, that will open our browser and open that in a SharePoint folder for us. And we've got all the functionality that we would have in SharePoint. So if you're used to using SharePoint, there's a load of powerful functionality here around things like maintaining version history. So if we look in the version history, we've only got one edit to this document, but if we'd got multiple edits across multiple people, they would all show in here, and we'd be able to roll the file back to a previous version if somebody had made some edits that we didn't want. So we'd have all that version history available to us within the SharePoint. And we've got all the other SharePoint functionality that will allow us to do things like automate. So if there's a file gets dropped into this library, we could set up a Power Automate flow to send the file somewhere, notify us of the file's existence, and so on. So we have the option to get into these files via here as well. We also have the option over here to synchronize the file, and this will take a second or two, but this will synchronize this file in this location to our OneDrive, which is the file storage that we were using in the first demo to store our files. Once we've synchronized this particular file library into OneDrive, we'll be able to access that file from Word. We'll be able to set those files to be accessible offline, so that we can take them with us and work on them collaboratively offline. And then when we bring our device back online, it will synchronize those changes back up to the library. And the final thing to note here is that we may wish this document, because it's so important, we may wish to have this document pinned as a tab at the top of the channel. And we can do that quite easily by going to the document here and say, make this a tab, and that will add that document and launch the embedded viewer for that document and editor. We could edit it here directly at the top of that channel. So if it's something particularly important to this piece of work, we can put it there and people can access it directly from there. Let's have a look at a few of the other bits of functionality that we might want to add into a channel where we're collaborating on a specific project. So at the top here, we've got a plus button in the tabs area. So if we select the plus button, we get a whole load of both Microsoft and partner add-ins that allow us to embed collaboration functionality directly in the Teams client. We can pick any number of these, and I'll just highlight a couple of interesting ones now, but there are literally hundreds of these that you can add in, including all kinds of things that integrate into existing products that you might have elsewhere in your organization, as well as the standard Microsoft ones. So we'll add a tasks by planner at the moment. At the moment, this is in flux between two different names, so there's several Microsoft products coming together, but this is some task management planning functionality that we might want to add. So we can use an existing one if we've got one. I don't have one in this tenant, so we'll create a new one and we'll just leave the default name as tasks, but you can have multiple plans, so you might have different plans for different parts of the project. So if we say save to that, and then we get this new tab called tasks, and then you see we get this kind of sort of set of buckets that we can put stuff in. So we've got a to-do one. We might have a in progress, and then we might have one for complete. Oops. Okay. So once we have our buckets, we can add a task. So we might go into here and say one of the tasks we need to do is update all the logos to the new brand guidelines. We might want to set a due date on that. So we might say towards the end of the month. We can assign it to a person if we want to, and that will create a task for them to complete the work. And then once we've completed it, we can lock that in there as a task. And then this task card we can move around. So we might want to say that this one is in progress now. And similarly, we might want to come back. We might want to add sub items in here. So we might have multiple areas that we want to update logos. So we might want to list them out so that we can tick them off individually. And then we can keep track of what's going on. You see there we've got one of two subtasks complete, and then ultimately we can move it over into the complete. These other bits of data that get attached into the back of here, so we can have a look at our current status. So you can see that Jane's got one task assigned to her. It's in the complete bucket, and so on. And we can see that on a schedule view if we set a date. So you see there we've got the due date set on that one. Let's look at a couple of other bits of collaboration functionality we might want to add then. So if we go back to the Add button here, one of the most common components we see in Microsoft Teams is OneNote. So OneNote is a shared notebook. So if we pick the OneNote icon, and we can either pick an existing one or we can create a new one. So let's create one for the product launch, and we can say save. And this will create as a blank OneNote notebook. Again, the file for this notebook where the data is stored will be in SharePoint, so it would be on the Files tab. But this effectively gives us a shared notebook that everybody can use. We can have multiple sections in here. We can have multiple pages, and then we can add text and pictures and diagrams and whatever else we want to add in here. And this can be accessible again, a bit like all of the other stuff. It can be accessed either via the Teams client, or using the OneNote tab over here, or using the standalone OneNote application that comes with Office 365, or using the OneNote web application. So a very flexible, versatile tool, and used in a lot of organizations. Most businesses that use Office 365 will use OneNote for collaborating on notes, meetings of minutes of meetings, those kind of things. If we look at another meeting-based collaboration tool, so again, if we hit the plus button here, we've got the whiteboard tool here. So increasingly, as more and more people are working from home, collaborating in meetings using digital whiteboards are becoming more and more common. So if we add a whiteboard to our channel, this is as it sounds really. This is a digital online whiteboarding tool that allows you to freeform draw on the screen and collaborate. So you might want to add sticky notes. We might want to be thinking about drawing some kind of process flow. So we could have multiple post-it notes representing some kind of sequence that we're discussing on a call, and then maybe we're going to link them together with some mechanism. So maybe we're showing some kind of flow here. We could have a text box to show whatever our label happens to be. And a little bit like the functionality that we saw in Word, at the moment there's only me in this whiteboard, but we could have multiple people attached to this whiteboard if it was part of a meeting, and they could all be editing this whiteboard at the same time. So you can have a true collaborative experience in the meeting using the standard Teams Meet functionality. You might also notice over here we've got a channel called Training. So this is an example where we're using the Microsoft Stream, which is a little bit like corporate YouTube, to embed training videos inside a channel. But I'll show you how you add that into the channel that we've been working on here. So if we go to the plus option here, and we're going to add that training channel. So we're going to use Microsoft Stream, which is the Office 365 video hosting platform. We're going to look for our training stream channel, which is there. We can select that, give it a name, and we can say save on that. And then when we go to that channel, that tab in our channel, we can see the videos that have been uploaded to that particular channel in Stream. So in this scenario, if you got this new product launch, maybe somebody's created a bunch of content in video form and is hosting it in the corporate Microsoft Stream. They will all live in there, and you can access them directly from within here. And this is just a link, so you could have this Stream channel linked in multiple teams if you wanted to. I hope you found this introduction to the Office 365 collaboration tools useful, and it'll help you in your journey transitioning towards productivity in the cloud.